right, guys, welcome back to another episode of On Air with Dro. This is episode number 3 on the Zoom series. Today, I have my good friend David Dwork from Channel 10, and he also has a podcast for the Florida Panthers called Chirping the Cats. Tell everybody hello, David.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Dro. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, David, for you coming on the show. I know we're having through tough times and everything, so kind of wanted to ask you, how's quarantine life? How's everything going since the whole pandemic has, broken through?
I mean, as good as can be expected, I remind myself all the time that I'm certainly very lucky in the situation and that I'm able to work from home and be with my family. And fortunately, my family has all been very healthy throughout all this. So I'm definitely one of the luckier ones because, as you know, it's been ridiculously tough for so many people
Right.
for a while now.
Of course. And I know it's gonna get better, it's just when you're, like with the amount of time. So I'm hoping everyone is doing well, when you guys are watching this, and if this gives you a little bit of happiness and stuff. So, you know, we're taking it day by day, and hopefully everything is gonna be good. But on other note, David, you know what we're here for. We're here to talk about hockey. We have some news. It's not confirmed just yet, but we do have some news that July 31st, they're looking to start up back the league. And now 24 teams will be added to this playoff, push for hockey. What do you feel about this agreement so far? Like having 24 teams. What is your opinion about that? Do you think that's okay?
Yeah, I think they did a good job of answering the question of, what do you do about all the teams that were on the fringe if they did end the regular season where it was, which is exactly what they did. And I think they came up with a pretty good solution. The five game play-in series that is part of the postseason, I think is good. I think it gives a lot of teams the opportunity to kind of it expands what we love about the playoffs, right?
Right.
Like one of the great things about hockey playoffs is that anybody can win it any year, just get in, and that's really all you have to do. I mean, we've seen it with the Kings a few years back when they won as the last team in the playoffs, the 16th seed, and that's what we love about the hockey playoffs is the unpredictability. So I think another round is great.
Hmm.
Overall, I'm happy with it. I hope they can get it off the ground. As you said, it's still a ways
Right.
away, and there's still a lot of hurdles that they're going to have to jump over. But it's a lot of steps in the right direction lately. So I'm certainly enthused about it.
Yeah, as a hockey fan for us, I mean, for me, without any sports for the past couple of months has been really, really hard. I mean, other than playing video games, that gets boring. So you don't want to be playing NHL 20. You want to see the real thing. You want to see the players going at it. So it's a really good step how, NBA and NHL have come to an agreement, for the same kind of date. So that should be good. So we're not too far away from it. So kind of the breakdown, if you guys don't know what they're agreeing to, so first thing they have agreed to an agreement for July 31st. That's the plan to start the season. Now, the East and the West are going to be broken down. So the East is a best of 5 or a play-in series, as it would say. First, you have the number 5 Pittsburgh Penguins going against the number 12 Montreal Canadiens. Then you have the number 6 Carolina Hurricanes going against the number 11 New York Rangers. Then you have the number 7 New York Islanders going against your hometown Florida Panthers, and then the number 8 Toronto Maple Leafs versus the number 9 Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, we want to talk about Florida hockey, Florida Panthers. So giving it to you, David, this is a rematch of 2016. Obviously, different players going at it. And it just feels weird because the Panthers, I think if you want to correct me, I believe this is the 5th time they've been in the postseason in their franchise history. Obviously, not the routinely way of making the playoffs, but do you think what do you think in best of 5? I mean, there's 2 less games in original games, best of 7. What do you think the Panthers' chances are against the Islanders this year?
First, I will correct you. It's the sixth time
Oh,
that they've
six time.
made it.
Sorry. Yes,
Lucky
perfect.
number
Even
six,
better.
we hope. But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's really no way to predict across the board because of this ridiculous 3 months that people have been just sitting around and waiting. Some of these players have gone longer without skating right now than perhaps their whole lives because you
Right.
get on skates young and you skate your whole life. And who takes 3 months off? So, obviously that's an element. Now, looking at how the teams were performing prior to the pause and just the season as a whole. You have to like the Panthers' chances in that the Islanders have been playing so poorly over the 6 weeks or so, and even a little bit beyond leading up to the break. Like the Islanders' bread and butter for so long, like what made them so good last season and what made them ridiculously good the first few months of this season was how well they were playing defensively. And as soon as those breakdowns started happening, teams started attacking their crease a little harder, making it a little bit more difficult on their goalies, Varlamov and Bryce. Goals started going in. You see the goals against going up, which is
Hmm.
interesting that the shots against, when I was researching this a couple weeks ago, their shots against really stayed the same all year. It was just the goals against that started to go up. So, it just kind of shows
Interesting.
that their defense was starting to break down a bit and teams were figuring them out. The
Right.
Panthers, obviously they had a nightmarish month of February. They really looked like they were coming out of it the last 3 games, the overtime loss to Boston, and then the wins against Montreal and at the Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. They were playing strong possessionally, which is what we saw prior to the All-Star break when they won 6 straight games. They were starting to put the puck in the net a little bit more. And really, the missing link for the Panthers as they went into the pause was performance from their top line, their Sasha Barkov and Evgeny Dadonov. Both were really struggling when the stoppage happened. So, if they can get going, obviously, I like the Panthers' chances in this one. The Panthers are a team that has not had any issues scoring really all season. They're a team that can put the puck in the net from line 1 to line 4 on the back end. You got two guys in Ekblad and Yandel, both over 40 assists this year. So I like the Panthers' chances. If the Islanders can turn things around and resume that defensive play, we could have a hell of a series.
Yeah.
Or if Thomas Bryce does against the Panthers what he's always done against the Panthers, which is have like a 950 save percentage,
Yeah.
that could make things difficult. But overall, Alejandro, I really do like the Panthers' chances against the Islanders.
Yeah, I do too. And then obviously, being a number 10 seed is not the worst thing. I know, having like Montreal being number 12, getting in, that's a different thing. They're playing different kind of hockey down the stretch. Uh, but I feel like the Florida Panthers, I think, believe it or not, normally when you have, like you were saying, normally when you have time off, especially for these guys that don't have more than a month off, even in the off season because you train and everything, honestly getting players back healthy. I mean, Brian Boyle is another one. He was kind of hurt down the stretch. Getting these key veterans in and making sure that you have that veteran presence. I think is going to be a really interesting part for the Florida Panthers, especially I mean. To be, there's not much playoff experience other than the veterans. Huberto being and Barkov being in the previous, playoff push in 2016. I think it's going to be something mentally really good for them, especially the time off and just eager to get back, and everyone's going to be fully healthy, which is going to be really good because I think we're probably going to see probably one of the best hockey playoffs in a while because everybody's just going to be so fresh, ready to go. Maybe a little rusty, but at the same time, I think these are professionals enough to understand that at the end of the day, they have one job to do, and that's to make sure that they win hockey games. And I think it's going to be very exciting. Obviously, it's a very disappointing that it's not going to be at the BB&T Center. Obviously, because the home crowd, we would love to see that 19,000 strong, going out there and really embracing the team. But it's going to be interesting. I think, like you said, there's going to be a lot of scoring goals. I think the Florida Panthers were like fifth or sixth in the league in offense this season. So they're able to be scoring in each and every line. So I think as Panther fans, we should be really excited, to see first of all hockey in general, but obviously a playoff. That's the best thing right now. So kind of the next thing that I wanted to go over is, since we're on the East side, is there any other favorable matchup that you would like to see other than the Florida Panthers game series?
Uh, Really, the one that jumps out at me every time I look at the bracket, as I look at it again right now, is
Hmm.
the matchup between 6 and 11, which is Carolina and the Rangers.
Yeah. Hmm.
Carolina, we know they're one of the more fun teams in the league, and kind of like the Panthers, they've had a little bit of an up and down year, until the stoppage. And the
Right.
Rangers were on fire in February and March. Like they came storming up the standings.
Hmm.
Yeah, they were really becoming a problem when with the Panthers also trying to get into that wild card. Like the Rangers were just creeping up,
Right.
and the way that they've been playing with with Panarin and their top line and guys like Zibanejad, And then their goalie rotation with Shostorkin coming in, and then Georgiev, and obviously they've got the King back there too. So it's intriguing as hell to me, that matchup. I'm excited to see it. But as you said, look, not only do we get playoffs right now when we've had
Right.
no sports to watch, but we get a bonus round basically. So
Exactly.
I'm just
Uh,
excited for it to happen. I'm excited to have some new content to write about and to cover, and you know just like you said, it's fun right now. I was just saying last night to my wife, like, just think about, we might be stuck at home in 2 months, but in 2 months we can also have live sports to watch, which is
It's
just going to be like mind blowing right now.
exactly. Yeah, and I think you nailed it. I think like how you were saying, we get bonus hockey. I mean, it's crazy to think that, and the bonus round. I think a lot of fans are going to come to it. I know they're limiting it to 2 cities. We don't know as of just yet, like where. But yeah, I agree with you. I really love the Carolina Hurricanes versus the Rangers. But I think another series that we could look at potentially would be the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets. I know Seth Jones had gotten injured right before the break. I'm not too sure how long his injury was, or is going to be. I'm sorry, but I think that would be another interesting topic because first of all, I mean, Toronto Maple Leafs, you have the young core, with Matthews, Marner, Frederick Anderson, et cetera, Nylander. Obviously, a lot of Maple Leafs all around, everywhere, definitely rooting for them. And they're just a really good team. As soon as they were getting into before the break, they were getting into a hot stretch. Very similar how you were saying with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Rangers. So that would be a little fun team to watch. And then Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, we all thought when Sergei Bobrovsky left Columbus, they were going to be in a tight hole. But um, Elvis, I can't pronounce his last name, but I think it's Merzlikins.
Likens.
Merzlikins, thank you. He has been tremendous. He's almost looked like a Bobrovsky, mini me. So definitely is really good for them. I think Columbus Blue Jackets and the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that series is going to be very interesting to watch. I think
Yeah.
maybe goals might be in a premium, but you may never know. Like playoff hockey, like you were mentioning, anything goes. So that should be interesting there. Um, so the last
Columbus
question
is
that I
totally
oh
healthy too, which is interesting because their story all year is they kept getting injuries to key
yeah,
players and they didn't skip a beat. So now they'll hit the playoffs, and I was just reading, they're supposed to be healthy across the board, not just
oh,
Seth Jones, but Atkinson. Everybody's coming back.
oh, look at
So
that.
the
Yeah,
Leafs will
hype.
have their hands.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough series. And the thing that I want to break it down, since we are staying in the East, just a little one more Panther question regarding that. So we saw that Dale Talon had a meeting kind of with the media the other day, and he was mentioning that or I think Randy Mueller asked him, how important is this playoff push? Obviously, these Florida Panthers, like we mentioned before, they made the playoffs in 2016, but you have some other players where you're getting evaluated to making sure is this a long tenure team that we want to continue. What is some of the things that you think are at stake here for the Florida Panthers? Because obviously, if they don't win this, round, you're going to have some questions at the end in the offseason, who to re-sign, who to trade for. What do you think? How pivotal is this playoff matchup?
I mean, you go into any playoff, especially the Panthers franchise, which they've come at such a premium. I mean,
Right.
we're approaching 30 years now, and this we just said before, it's the sixth time they've made it. They haven't won a playoff round since 1996. Okay, that's 24 years.
Wow.
So regardless of what the situation is, whether it's a regular playoff year, whether it's coronavirus and empty arenas, it's the playoffs, so it's
Yeah.
pivotal for the Panthers to succeed. That's the message that you're going to hear across the board. There's nothing more important right now to this team than game one against the Islanders whenever it happens.
Right.
And then you move on from there. So whether they move on, they get their first playoff round win, they make some noise, or if it ends right there, then your decisions will come afterwards. But you can't really get into the mindset of thinking about that because you've got to focus on what's right in front of you. Now,
Of course.
obviously, having said that, big decisions looming because you've got free agents, Hoffman, Dadnov, Pissick is another one who's become very valuable, I think, to this team, especially in Quinville's
Utility
opinion.
man.
He may come
Right.
back cheap. And if you look at their restricted free agents across the board, they're all guys that you'd want to hang on to.
Right.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, it was man, I'm drawing a blank right now. I had the whole list recently. It's just a bunch of young guys. Like Weeder, I think, was in there, and Josh Brown was another defenseman in there. Um, wow, this I hate it when this happens and you just draw a blank. But there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made for Talon for sure. And as we've seen
Probably like Tony
previously,
Nato or
whether it
somebody.
was what's that?
Was it like Tony Nato? You talking about defensemen or forwards or
Oh
in
no,
general?
Toninato was another one that was on
Yep.
the RFA list. But I'm just saying, in terms of Dale Talon, if you look at what he's done in
Yes,
say the
yes.
last year,
Right.
he went after Taylor Hall, he went after Artemi Panarin, and this was already with what's in place.
Right.
So you got to think he's not shy at all from making another big move or bringing in another huge name contract, whatever.
Hmm.
So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with the offseason because I think all options are on the table for Dale. He may try to wipe the board clean from the current guys and go
Hmm.
after a new stock of player in terms of getting rid of Dadonov, Hoffman, those guys.
Right.
But right now, what we were first saying, the playoffs have got to be the focus,
Right.
and the Panthers go into a series. You've got to like their chances just because of the team they have, regardless of what the Islanders have been up to. They've got
Hmm.
a team that should be built for playoff success. So you mentioned before all those playoff veterans that they brought in, the Connollys, the Acharis, Bobrovsky, 34 games of playoff experience under his belt. Boyle they signed. Anton Strawman, he's been to the finals
Right.
twice. Him and Boyle went back-to-back years with teammates with the Rangers and with the Lightning. So they've
Yep.
got plenty of playoff experience. There's really no excuses left at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, there's nothing more that Dale Talon couldn't do, right? And I agree. I think for some Panther fans, we see Dale Talon similar to like a Pat Riley style. Obviously, less success, but his pedigree, his resume with the Blackhawks, kind of gave him that as soon as he came over from Chicago. But for me, I have all trust in Dale Talon. I mean, he hasn't been really lucky with some of the moves he's had over the years like a Jerry Hoodler back in the day in 2016, and Teddy Purcell. I'm okay with better than Jerry at least, but there's been some moves where kind of been questionable, but it's kind of thing where he's I think the Yager one was obviously the best one. Unfortunately, it was only for a few seasons. I think that was great for Huberdeau and Barkov to really learn because they studied a lot. But I mean, there's been some moves where, yeah, maybe is it the right move, maybe not. But at the end of the day, Dale Talon, I think in general, especially drafting and scouting, I mean, that's what he's mainly for. Where he's really grown, his style through hockey and really developing young players. And then the trading aspect where he can get somebody at the trade deadline and stuff like that is like an add-on. But I like the veterans that we have this year. I think they just for me and personally, I mean, you watched them more than I have, but it felt like they gave up a little bit too much where their game was a little bit off. And I think that's the reason why you had like a good start, then you had like that February that you were talking about, and it's like, man, on paper there's just so good enough to play that why can they play consistency, with all the 82 games? But I agree. I mean, I think in general, right, there's a lot of high expectations for this team to develop and at least win 3 games, in this upcoming series. Again, we don't want to jinx anything. We're ready for it to see on the ice, but I agree with you. I think if best of 7 is still hard enough, but best of 5, I mean, it's a little bit harder only because there's less games. But you got to be on your toes at all times. So definitely should be an interesting topic, to talk about after the season. Hopefully, they're continuing their playoff push, but we'll see how that goes. So going into the West, just a couple teams here where I'm kind of really intrigued. I mean, I think in general, I think the Western Conference, I mean, is a really good conference. They have a lot of good teams, a lot of young ones as well. Kind of breaking that down is we got the number 5 Edmonton Oilers versus the number 12 Chicago Blackhawks. We got the number 6 Nashville Predators going against the number 11 Arizona Coyotes. Then we have the number 7 Vancouver Canucks going against the number 10 Minnesota Wild. And then you have the number 8 Calgary Flames going against the number 9 Winnipeg Jets. For me personally, I mean, you can go with any matchup here. I think it should be very interesting. I think in general, what I'm looking for, I like sleeper picks, right? So I'm looking at that number 6 Nashville Predators versus the number 11 Arizona Coyotes. I think any hockey fan, I think, is rooting for Arizona at this point because I think Arizona hasn't made it since like 2012. or 2011, I believe, back when Mike Smith was a goaltender back there. So definitely this is going to be a fun matchup. Arizona is a very young team, restructured their whole organization pretty much. Has developed good players, a lot of veterans, very similar to the Florida Panthers. It's maybe the similarities, and maybe that's the reason why I like Arizona. I mean, Nashville's a great team. I love Nashville as well. Their defensive core is amazing. Pekka Rinne is getting older, but still a great goaltender. And then you have Forsberg, you have Craig Smith, you have Duchesne now. So a lot of firing power for the Predators, but I'm always rooting for the underdog. So Arizona Coyotes, they have a tough task, but I think that would be a fun, interesting matchup for people to really check out if they need another hockey game to watch. Right? What do you think, David?
No, I totally agree. That's the series that I want to watch. In that first round Western Conference. I've been high on Arizona since last year when I picked them as a playoff team before they were decimated from injuries and lost all their goaltenders.
Yeah.
So this year, I thought once again that they would be a good team. They were healthy. They had Darcy Kemper back there, who was looking really good in goal before he got hurt briefly
Hmm.
earlier this year. But I love their back line. I love Oliver Ekman Larson. They've got Goligoski. They've got
Right.
a Jacob Chikrin back there who should be back from his injury. And then you look at their forwards and you forget they've got Taylor Hall. They've got Phil Kessel, in addition to all the young guys. The Cody Kessler, the
Yep. Thank
Clayton
Kelly. Yep.
Kellers of the world. Even Vinny Hinestroza, the guy they got from Chicago.
Yep.
So and then I mentioned Darcy Kemper and goal, but they've also got Ansi
Right.
Ronka. So they've got that 1-2 punch, just like with the Panthers,
Right.
having Bob and Drieger is very good. So I'm excited to see that playoff series roll out. I'm just excited to get there, to be honest. It's still a
Yeah,
ways
I
away.
agree.
After having nothing since March, it seems like it doesn't feel like that far away, just because we've got fresh, updates every so often, like something to
Hmm.
keep us going.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in general, I think, to be honest with you, without having hockey for 2 months, I think we're gonna get spoiled in reality. So I think this should be very fun. Obviously, you have the top 8 teams, top 4 teams being Boston Bruins, Tampa Bay Lightning, Capitals, the Flyers. Then you have the Blues, Avalanche, and the Knights in the West. And as far as I know, I think what I was reading, they were gonna have like a best of three type series for them to reseed the top 4. So I'm not 200% sure because they haven't really come
Uh,
out with it, but
it's
that should be
From what they're
interesting there.
saying now, it's going to be they're each going to play each other once,
Okay.
and whoever comes out of that little round robin, which is what they call it,
Okay.
whoever comes out of that with the best record, the best points percentage, that's how they'll rank them.
Oh,
And then,
interesting. Okay.
like, for whatever reason, two teams end up tied, then they'll go to the regular season points percentage to break that tiebreaker.
Wow. There's so much math going pretty much, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, so that was pretty much the breakdown, the update that we have for you guys for the NHL. The what I want to ask you, David, obviously you've been in sports for a long period of time. Do you have a favorite Panthers memory? It could be playoff, regular season, mostly playoff if you can, but something
Uh,
that you really cherish and over the years.
I mean, the one thing that always pops out to me when you talk about, obviously, for Panthers playoffs, in terms of in person memories, I always go back to 2012, Game 7 at
Oh,
home. Hadn't been in the playoffs in over 10 years. Hadn't won a playoff game in nearly 20 years.
right.
Hadn't won a playoff game since '97. Hadn't been to the playoffs since 2000. Finally back, a playoff series, a Game 7 at home, and then Marcel Gotch, when he tied that game late in the third period, and that building just, I'd been in the BB&T Center even back in 2012. You've been in there hundreds of times. It's
Yeah,
been around since '98, so never had I seen the building, heard the building. Just it was unbelievable.
right.
And yeah, so I always just go back to that as something that, at least for Panther fans, we haven't had much of. I personally was not at the '96 run. I watched them all on TV, but I was still pretty young,
Same.
and I didn't get to go to any of those games. So being at the 2012 and the 2016 playoff games were awesome. But that moment, that minute or so after Marcel Gotch tied that game, and I even go back and I watch the YouTube videos sometimes, just so I
Same.
can hear in the background the crowd
Right.
just whoosh.
Right. I'm with you. And the funny thing is that's my favorite moment too. It's just like even I mean, I would even say, you know, the game tying goal or even Stephen Weiss's power play goal before that was even a very vital, goal going into that. But I remember that series
Joe,
perfectly
give me
because
1 second. I'm sorry, I got to
oh,
open the door.
you're good.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. It
I didn't realize
happens.
my cat was locked in here when we started this, and she was like scratching
She's
on
like, get
the.
me out of here.
I don't need her to pee on the bed while we're doing this.
Yeah, no, no, I know how that feels. We have one here as well. But yeah, just to go back to it, yeah, I think that's my favorite moment too. I just remember that playoff series vividly. I think I was 17 or 18, I can't remember. And literally uh, yeah, actually 18. Didn't have a job at the time. My dad didn't want me to go to hockey games because they were over $100. I was super mad because I wanted to go to game one, couldn't go to game one, couldn't go to game two either. So I had to watch them all from my house. So I was just like, oh. But game seven, I just remember so vividly, everything happening. I watch it on YouTube all the time, how you were mentioning. I kind of just saw it a couple of days ago, believe it or not, probably like the whole game because it's on there and it's amazing. And you're right. I mean, the fans, I go back to every moment. I mean, going against Martin Brodeur at the time, I mean, like, who would have thought, right? I think also the Florida Panthers, I think it was game four or game five. I can't remember which one it was against New Jersey where they came back from 3 goals. That was a really good game
That was
there
game
where
four.
it was great. Just missing the players. I mean, Marcel Gotch was one of those players where I mean, on paper, you're not seeing him as a line one, line two, but he just plays such a vital role. And I think, believe it or not, I think Marcel Gotch is other than Barkov and Huberto, he would probably be one of my favorite players to play the game as a Panther because he just did so much work. But I just remember it vividly, especially like the whole bench. They were just going nuts. Like I know, like even the fans, going crazy and everything. But the bench, I remember they were showing replays where like Mike Weaver was just putting his hands straight up, and it was just phenomenal. And then obviously the celebration. I mean, that's what I love playoff hockey. You see all the boys jumping around, hugging each other. I mean, it's just like it was phenomenal. Obviously, we all know how it ended. And I still, to this day, I don't think Sean Matthias did a goalie interference on Martin Brodeur, but that's how it's gonna be. And then of course I'm getting a call now. So look at that. All right, so no problem. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the memories. Obviously, like we were, breaking down. We have hockey back. July 31st. That's when it's looking to be. I think they were saying the season's going to end around October-ish. So we'll see how they pan out for the next season. But we'll definitely see that. But again, David, this was very fun. Again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If any final words from you?
No, I just thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Look forward to the season getting started soon, and once we get going again, we'll revisit and hopefully talk about some fun playoff stuff.
Yeah, hopefully it's Panthers moving on to the next series, but we're all waiting here. But again, I want to thank you again, David, and you be safe. Take care, okay?
All right, brother, be good.